and welcome back to AHM's Here For You podcast. I am so excited today to have our clinical director, Megan Aldridge, on with us as we continue to talk about youth mental health and how we as parents and caregivers can really connect our youth to services that we at AHM provide. So thank you so much, Megan, for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started, Megan. If you can tell us a little bit about your role at AHM, how long you've been with the organization, and what drew you to the work that you do at our organization.
Sure. So I am the clinical director at AHM. So that means that I oversee our clinical program. So our clinical program consists of both outpatient therapy that we do out of our office in Hebron, as well as our school-based student support services team as well. And those are counselors who are located in all of the schools that we serve in our community. So I provide direct supervision to them. And I also see youth and families for clinical services out of our office as well. So right now we serve youth up to age 26. So I'm seeing kids and young adults with their parents and sometimes with their families for outpatient services. And I've been with AHM for 8 years, just about 8 years.
Yep.
I think what first really drove me to work in the mental health field were just some, I think, earlier experiences that I had with it that kind of sparked my interest in the field in general. So I think what really stands out to me in my earlier experience with this was when I was in middle school. We experienced a tragic loss. A friend of ours had passed away, and it had such an impact on not only myself, but the school community, her friends and family, of course, and the entire community in general. And I think this was the first time that I really had experienced a really unified response to this kind of crisis. I think for myself, having access to support in the school, to have counseling support, and to really experience what that was like, and specifically through AHM. And that was kind of my first exposure to AHM, having grown up and lived in this community. So having school-based counselors there, having that kind of response, seeing what could happen with, to meet the needs of all the students who were experiencing such a crisis was incredibly profound. And then, just having that early experience, and it sort of opened the door for not only me to access mental health services through various, stages or struggles or things in my life, but also just kind of shaped the way that I view the importance of balancing your mental health needs. And it aligned with my belief that people are just inherently good inside, and just really sparked my desire to work with people in this way. So that was kind of how my journey was shaped with that. But I was super excited to be able to come back when there was an opportunity to work at AHM, and it kind of came full circle for
me. And
we
are so grateful for that, because I think what I love about what you bring to AHM is not only your expertise in the clinical work that you do, but the fact that you are from the community. You understand the demographics and the families that make up the 4 towns that we serve. And like you said, you experienced the benefits and the support from AHM some years ago, and, are now kind of full circle moment, being able to give that back. And so we are so grateful for everything you do. All right, so let's jump right into the topic here today, which is around youth and mental health. And so we kind of keep hearing a lot about this term, youth mental health crisis, that we're experiencing. And so what are you kind of seeing right now in our community, whether it's, in the schools or in our outpatient practice, as far as trends and just kind of issues that the kids are trying to deal with?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that we're definitely consistent with what we're seeing nationwide with this youth mental health crisis. I know that speaking with our team and what I'm seeing as well, we're definitely seeing a rise in youth who are struggling with depression and anxiety, who are coping with trauma, who have had suicidal thoughts or thoughts of harming themselves, who are coping with a lot of things shifting in their families and living situations. And so it's certainly been really profound in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the number of students who are requiring support, but also the level of need and the severity of it as well. And I know especially within the schools, I think our school-based counselors are seeing a rise in not only the depression and anxiety with a lot of the students, but also, especially with our younger kids, a lot of struggles with emotion regulation. So really big feelings coming out in the classrooms, which can lead to really big behavior problems in the classrooms as well. So kids really just struggling, I think, to be available for learning, to be able to stay regulated and to cope with a lot of the stressors that they're experiencing in their lives.
So Megan, a lot of times you and I will have discussions around this kind of perfect storm that has happened right within our region and what's created the referrals to come into AHM, which we are so grateful for, but we are finding that we have more families calling us for referrals and wanting to come in for therapy, which we want to support, but also the challenges, like you said, are requiring more frequent visits than maybe what we saw, 4 or 5, 6 years ago, which for us has been a great opportunity because we've been able to expand our practice. And obviously our goal is to help as many kids as we can. Along with the mental health challenges, like you said, anxiety, depression, maybe some regulation within emotions, what are you seeing as far as trends in substance use, and how is that correlating with mental health?
Sure. I mean, just like when we see a rise in mental health struggles, a lot of times we're also seeing concerns rise in substance use, especially with our youth, because they are so interconnected and interrelated. So a lot of times as youth are struggling with mental health concerns like depression and anxiety, they're also struggling with substance use. It can kind of increase their vulnerability for using substances and the risk that they are under. A lot of times people are using to cope, to self-medicate, right? So for a lot of reasons, they might find that it's something that's been helpful or kind of alleviates some of the symptoms that they might be experiencing. But then as substance use increases, it can also really just intensify or worsen the underlying mental health conditions as well. So it's kind of cyclical and they are super interrelated. I'd say locally, what are we noticing? I mean, we've been pretty consistent in our region with concerns around alcohol use, cannabis use, both vaping and things that are now in different forms, and edibles and liquids and, consumables that way, as well as nicotine vaping. So those are, I think, what some of our community members are noticing and seeing as, what our youth are currently struggling with locally. But yeah, it's like really, we can't really talk about one without talking about the other because they are so connected, which is also true then when it comes to treatment. When we're thinking about how do we treat, substance use and mental health, we treat them together as well. So it's often something where we're seeing when there's co-occurring disorders or struggles with both an underlying mental health condition and substance use, we're doing that treatment together. We're engaging in therapy, sometimes medication management, but also sometimes additional support groups. So something that we utilize often is our Youth Smart Recovery group that we have available in the high school that our high school kids at least can access when there's a substance use issue going on and a concern. So we like to supplement the work that we're doing in therapy with other support that can be available.
I think that's why our team has been so successful in approaching these challenges and helping families is that right built in to what we do at AHM, we do have different options. We have those built-in staff members who have those special trainings that we can offer, like you said, Smart Recovery right at the high school. I kind of want to shift a little bit and talk about another trend that we're seeing within our youth that is impacting mental health, and we probably in upcoming episodes will talk about this even more because I feel like this is a huge deal, and that is social media and technology. And we have a stat here that about 1 in 5 teens say that social media harms their mental health. So our youth are pretty conscious of the fact that social media is impacting their mental health. And so how have you seen within the mental health landscape the negative impacts of social media and technology?
Yeah,
years?
that's a great question. And I think it's one of the most significant things that our youth are navigating that is really distinct from what I think generations in the past have had to go through. I think especially adolescence can be a difficult time for every kid who's going through that. But currently, what challenges exist with social media and the technology that our kids are experiencing and have to, figure out how to navigate, it really can intensify a lot of the struggles that they're going through. So, like, if we think about, right, the immediacy of, what happens online, what happens on social media, like how quickly kids can access it, how available they have to be all the time, right? How accessible everything is. There's a lot of risks that can pose for our kids. I think it can create really opportunities for cyberbullying to happen, right? So like mistakes that happen, embarrassing moments, those kinds of unflattering pictures, things like that. We've, seen things like that get spread around and used as kind of a social weapon against kids where it's got this lasting effect and this permanency and just spreading like wildfire. Like the pace is so intense.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is our current youth don't know life without social media.
Sure.
Which is very different than maybe from where you and I come from, where we can remember a time where social media wasn't part of our identity. And so I think, social media isn't going away anytime soon. So it's helping youth find a healthy balance of it and how to navigate that. And so I think most definitely future episodes will really focus on that, because I do feel that that's an area where parents really would appreciate some more support around that. I have in the past, I don't know, maybe year, have heard where our youth are turning to some of these social media platforms like TikTok and AI for mental health advice. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like this can be a really, really scary situation that is becoming more common.
Sure. I think with anything, right, there can be pros and cons. I think a lot of the youth would see it as sometimes an opportunity to connect with others who might be experiencing what they are. So it can be validating in some ways. It can feel like, I'm seen. This person really understands me, and I'm not the only one, right? But I think it can also be really risky because there's no way to really know that you're getting accurate information. There's no way to really kind of vet and know who's giving you that information. Are they qualified? So I think kind of knowing where that information is coming from and how accurate it is one of the biggest problems. Most content creators are motivated by getting engagement with their content, right? They don't have your best interest at heart. Yep. So it's really risky to kind of take what they're saying as the truth with a capital T when their motives are not necessarily aligned with your health and your safety. And I think it can also be problematic because it can, I think, sometimes limit kids from accessing support that they really do need. So like from either their parent or another trusted adult or a licensed professional, so if they're only getting information from TikTok or seeking connection through AI, that can be a real safety risk. We've heard of some really concerning stories of people engaging with AI in ways where their AI is not recognizing certain risk signs. And I realize that it's changing constantly all the time, and there are certain safeguards that they're attempting to put in place. But I think right now, from what we understand about it, the risk is enormous because if there are certain kids that's where they're getting their information or where they're seeking help, and AI is not encouraging them to, call a support line or get immediate help or go to an emergency room, then their safety could really be at risk for that. Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next area I want to talk about is what can parents do, or caregivers? We know in this area of the state we have some grandparents raising their grandkids. So any parent, caregiver, grandparent, what do you feel that maybe the biggest mistake? Well-meaning caregivers, they obviously want to do the right thing, but what do you think when it comes to mental health? Maybe some, slight mistakes we're making when we're approaching this topic with our kids.
Sure. I mean, I think that the biggest misstep, right, is parents who are not talking to their kids about mental health, about, certain risk items, social media risks, or things like that. Because what I hear from parents is that they're concerned for several reasons. They're worried about, one, I think, pushing their kid away, and kind of damaging that trust or the relationship they have with them. But I think that they're also worried about maybe implanting ideas that don't currently exist. That's what I've heard, at least from parents who are worried. Like, if I talk about it, will I be creating a problem? And so my answer to that is no, right? Like, it's definitely clear that by talking about your concerns for your child, by talking about mental health and being proactive about how we care for our mental health, you're not going to put any ideas in their head that don't already exist.
And I think sometimes we think our kids don't know as much as they already know.
Yes. Right? Absolutely. Yes.
We'll bring up a topic. Oh, yeah, I know that. Or, yeah, I've seen that. And then you're like, what? So I think sometimes, more often than not, they know more than what we think.
Absolutely. And I think even, right, if your kid gives you a hard time, or they kind of push back, or like, oh, mom, or, I don't want to hear that, or that's not a problem, that doesn't happen, that's okay. And I don't think that you've really done damage there. I always try to kind of zoom it out and say, okay, but the larger message is, I care and I'm concerned. Right. And as long as that's where that's coming from, and I think that's the message that we're sending kids, and they feel cared for, even if their response to you directly is like, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So with that, do you have any examples of how we as parents, caregivers, grandparents can support mental health?
Yeah. I think that the most important thing, or one of the most important things for caregivers to really do, is to prioritize their own mental health. And I think for a lot of reasons, right? I think parenting kids can be really hard. It can be extremely challenging at every single stage for different reasons. I think one, being able to build your own capacity for navigating the challenges of parenting is one thing. I think it can bring up a lot of your own underlying things, your own underlying mental health conditions, or past traumas, or just needs that you have. So being able to care for your own mental health not only builds the capacity to parent, but it also models that for your kids, right? It shows them, like, you don't have to be perfect. You can have anxiety. You can have, episodes of depression. You're absolutely allowed to be human, and you are and should be with your kids. But I think they definitely notice, and they see what we do to take care of ourselves, and how we talk about our own mental health,
right,
what support we seek.
I think sometimes just verbalizing as an adult, as a parent, as a grandparent, how you're feeling, and being honest with them, right? Like, if there is a time where you're frustrated, I think it's okay to say, you know what, I need to take a minute. I'm feeling really tense. I'm feeling really stressed right now. I'm feeling a little sad or angry.
Yeah.
I need to take a moment for myself. And just being honest and open with that again is a way to model. And so we're showing our kids, like, okay, when you have a feeling, it's okay to name it and share it.
Absolutely.
Express how you want to maybe, start to, decompress that feeling. Which is hard to do as a parent, because I think sometimes we want to just like shut down and like just, walk away.
Absolutely. Or right, we go into like problem solving mode a lot of times, but I think it's okay to pause and to kind of model what you're going through. And, I think we can normalize it exactly like that. We're talking about our feelings. We're talking about our needs, what's working, what's not. I think we can, we can do a service to our children by talking about mental health the same way that we talk about physical health, right? Like, I think a lot of people are comfortable talking about what we do for our bodies, right? How we stay healthy, the foods that we eat, how it impacts how we feel. And I think we can do the same and frame it as talking about our brain health. What are the things that we do to keep our brain healthy, to take care of our emotions? And we can normalize that.
It's okay as a parent to not always have the answer in that moment.
Yes.
And I think that's something I know as a parent sometimes I struggle with, because I want to be able to help every situation that my kids are struggling with. But I think, again, being honest, and there have been times where I will listen and I will say, you know what, I want to help you, but I don't know if I have, the skills to help you. Why don't we go to see this person? Or why don't we try and talk with this person at school? I think that's okay too. Right?
Absolutely.
Not always have the answer.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So with that, let's kind of get into, if I'm at a point with my youth, my child, and I think it is maybe time to start seeking some higher level care. What should first parents look for if there is that next level of care within their mental health? What are some signs?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a great question, right? I think parents often wonder, like, what's under the umbrella of, okay, this is typical for where my kid is. This is like kind of normal, what kids go through, versus when do I need to reach out for, and get professional help. And so I would say I always just try to assess, like, how much is it impacting their life, your life, right? Like, are the struggles that they're going through affecting their relationships with either friends or with you and your family, right? Are they struggling in school and either getting up and going to school, or their performance in school has declined? Are they not doing activities that they used to do, and it's really impacting their ability to participate in those things? So I would just kind of encourage parents to look at the impact, and if what their struggles are negatively impacting certain areas of their life, then absolutely, I think it makes sense to seek professional help. I always err on the side of call and seek help, and and that's also something that therapists will talk to you about and try to figure out what's under that umbrella of normal, typical development, and what's maybe something that they could use some additional support under. And with that said, I think that kids who are going through typical developmental milestones still also need support. Yeah. So I always err on the side of caution.
Yeah. All right, so let's go through, if you were to call AHM and you want to maybe connect with a therapist, let's go A to Z, because I think it's important for people to understand what the process looks like, and especially at AHM, like how you're going to be supported, through that whole journey, that whole process. So they're going to call AHM. They're going to get one of our wonderful, front desk staff on the phone. Another way that they can connect is through emailing. We do have that means as well. And so once that call comes in, what's the next step? What's going to happen?
Absolutely. So they would be connected with our program coordinator, who handles all of the intakes or inquiries regarding our clinical services. And she's super kind and very helpful, and will kind of help navigate this entire process together with the family who's calling. So that usually what that entails is her asking some general questions about kind of what's going on, what services are they looking for, making sure that they'll fit within what we can offer and the services that we provide. So it's kind of just gathering some of that background information. We also would gather then insurance information, or talk about how the client is looking to pay for services, and which is something I think that is important for people to kind of know and be aware of, because and I say this because it can become a potential barrier to treatment, which we've seen. So I think knowing your benefits is really important. You can do that either by checking your health insurance website and their portal, making sure that our providers might be covered. You can also do that through calling your insurance company. But what we will do by gathering your information is we will also check your benefits and then communicate any kind of out-of-pocket cost to you, so that you're fully aware going into the services of what that would look like. And then what we would try to do is gather also your availability and try to figure out from our team of therapists who has openings at times that would work. We would let you know, what availability we would have to be able to get you started.
So let's talk about availability, because I do feel that obviously those after school time slots are like prime time. Everybody, wants to get care after school, which we do, Monday through Thursday, we have after school slots well into the evening, and then Saturday mornings as well. But if for some reason, those daytime slots are full, I think it's important for people to know that we do have daytime availability. And I think sometimes, that is hard. But I do want to just let folks know that our school systems are extremely supportive of having youth leave school to come to AHM for appointments. So I don't know if you want to comment around that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. especially if there is something that's kind of really pressing or urgent that's going on, and you're looking to really get your child started in therapy right away, taking advantage of one of those immediate openings can be really helpful. Because what can happen is kind of if you start seeing a therapist during the school day, and that's kind of where it starts initially, their availability may shift and change over time, and you could move into something that would be, after school or on the weekend if that works. So I would always encourage people to take advantage of that. I think also what we have found is that the schools have been supportive, especially right when some of those mental health needs are probably impacting their availability for learning at school. And so there are just some times where it is important to prioritize mental health treatment, and then the rest can kind of fall in. Absolutely.
School days. So, yeah, I think it's just important for our viewers to know that, if you live in the area and you're working with AHM, we have amazing relationships with the schools, and there's never any pushback or question while your student is leaving school to come to AHM and then, return or whatever that schedule might look like. But they have always been super supportive of letting youth leave to come over to AHM for support. So, okay. So they, at this point, have made an appointment. And so now, what happens when they get to AHM? What should they expect when they come in the building?
Yes, yep. So initially when they would come into the building, they'd be greeted by our reception staff there, and they would be informed if there is any copay or out-of-pocket cost that they can take care of that. But then they would be shown our waiting area where our clients wait for their therapist to be ready, at which time then they would be able to, at the time of their appointment, meet their therapist and be shown the office space that they would be meeting in. And in that first session, really the therapist does a lot of work to just try to get to know the child and the family, to really understand what some of the struggles are, or the concerns are coming in. So they do pretty much a comprehensive assessment. So they'll kind of learn a little bit about when symptoms started, how long it's been going on, how disruptive things have been to life. But more than that too, they'll try to just get to know the strengths and the interests of the child, and to really start to build that connection and to have a positive experience in that first session. I think it's very common that a kid or a family might be nervous coming in and have some concerns and struggles. So we do our best to try to just make it as comfortable and fun and engaging as possible. I
give our clinicians so much credit. Your offices are all so much fun, and you do a wonderful job of having crafts and fidgets and sand trays and just all these different options for all ages to feel comfortable, kind of gauge what a child's interest is, and base those beginning conversations around a common interest, which is hard because we do see children all the way up through 26.
Yes.
So we have to have offices, prepared and ready to go. But you all do just an amazing job of creating spaces that are comfortable and have all of those different options for when clients come in. Much more fun in my office. For sure. So you get through that first appointment, and then what happens from there? Like how many sessions, say, would a youth come in for? Like what should parents expect? And I know that's going to vary.
Of course, yeah. Yep. And that is something that they'll discuss really early on is, trying to come up with some treatment goals. So what not only the parents and caregivers are looking for their child, or what their concerns are, but also what the goals for the child are, which sometimes align, but sometimes they don't. So we really try to set up some expectations, some common expectations around what those goals of treatment will look like. So we have a formal treatment plan, but we're also having an ongoing conversation about how things are progressing. And the length of the treatment episode, or how long, right, the client is in therapy, definitely does vary. So we've got some folks who are with us for 2 or 3 months, and it's kind of a pretty short time where we can effectively problem solve and create some relief or some progress pretty quickly. Or we have some people who are dealing with much more kind of complex or pervasive or ongoing, issues that they're dealing with where treatment could last longer, 6 months or even a year. So that's something that, though, we continue to talk to our clients and our parents and guardians about, and that can ebb and flow over treatment. So we've also had parents where sometimes they'll come in and there's certain concerns, but over the course of therapy, that can shift and change. So we've had that certainly happen.
Different, just life situations happen.
Exactly.
And I think to the frequency, some of our youth come in every other week, some youth come in every week. Sometimes that even ebbs and flows. They'll start every other week. Something will happen. They come in every week, then they go back to every other week.
Exactly.
So I think we do our best to, meet the needs.
Yes. Yep. And that's something that the therapist will always talk to the families about. So it's something that they'll kind of come up with that plan. What does it look like initially? And if there's a need to change that, then that's just part of the open communication as they go through.
One of the other kind of tools that we have at AHM, which I think is unique to our physical building, which I'd love for you to just comment about, is our trail that we have. And how that is a tool or a space in which youth can benefit with their therapist.
So we're very fortunate, right, to have the access to this nature trail directly out, of the door of our building. And it's a short little trail that just kind of goes through. It's beautiful. Yeah. So we have several clients who have benefited from, when things, if they're just not really able to really engage in conversation, or we're kind of stuck in treatment, or we just kind of need to shake things up a little bit. I mean, being able to get out of the office and walk through that trail and, it can really help, not only just be physically in nature, which I think is really restorative. Exactly. But also to be able to just open up the conversation, to change up something in therapy. So it's really, we're so fortunate to have access to that as a tool.
I'm so grateful for that. And for the parents that are waiting in the waiting room.
Yes.
If they too want to go out and just be one with nature, decompress a little bit, enjoy some fresh air, I think we're just so fortunate to have that as a space. And that's not something that you will see at every practice, but we're really grateful. So, all right. So my next question is, what do you do if you have a youth that comes in that really does not want to be in therapy? And I think sometimes this is the case. How do you handle that?
Sure. I mean, it's not uncommon, right? I think that a lot of times when parents are concerned about something, the kid is not always, they don't share that same concern, or they might just be really hesitant to participate. And I always tell parents who are concerned about this, right, that it's okay to take a strong stance when it comes to helping your kid get connected to therapy. I know we definitely want to listen to our kids and understand, and if they're hesitant, like that's okay to kind of hear what their concerns are. But if you have concerns as a parent for your child's mental health, and especially if you have safety concerns about self-harm, or are they thinking about ending their life, I mean, these are things that we want to make sure they can get help for. So it's okay to take a strong stance and say, I've made an appointment and we're going to go, and I want you to give it a try. Talk to me about what you're worried about, but let's go. So if the parent can get them there, I would like to offer parents reassurance that therapists are definitely skilled and experienced in working with kids who are hesitant to participate. And it usually just starts with meeting them exactly where they are and understanding why do they not want to be there. And that's okay. We're not trying to force anybody to be excited about being there, or we're really just trying to get to understand, okay, why do they feel that way? Why do they think that their parent is so concerned that they brought them here? What is it that they might like to get out of this? And giving them permission to have that be something that is their own in this space. So I think therapists use a lot of different strategies to engage kids, and whether, like you said, we use some of the tools, some of the things that we can play with, and making it a fun, engaging environment, getting to know that kid and like what they really like, what their interests are. There's a lot that we can try to do to make it a fun space and a positive experience, and get to understand what their hesitance is about. So I would still encourage parents to reach out, even if they're thinking that their kid might not be on board.
I feel like for parents that might be wondering how that interaction is going to go, just get them to the door. Get them to the door
Yes.
at AHM, and
Yep.
we will take care of the rest. And I think you will be pleasantly surprised at how our clinicians are able to really, like you said, meet children where they're at, find an interest that excites them, and just start in building that rapport in a positive way. And so I think that even the hardest of youth that we've had, our therapists have done an amazing job in connecting with them and having a positive relationship.
Sure. And I think that really is it. It's about building relationships. And I think everybody on our clinical team that's like first and foremost what they're looking at is they're connecting with kids and families on a just human to human basis and having that be a positive experience. So they just focus on that relationship with that child, and we go as slow as they need to go. And that really, I know that especially when there's a problem and a concern with the mental health, like there's an urgency around that and we want to fix it right away. But I would just say, we have to be somewhat patient with that process as well as we're building trust, as we're building connection, so that kids do feel comfortable sharing what's going on honestly and being vulnerable and being able to go through the work that it takes to make progress. So it's just a step in the process.
So patience as well, for sure. So, all right, Megan, if you could give parents a couple things to focus on when it comes to, their child's mental health, what would those be?
So I know we talked a little bit about this, but I would say, number one, to take care of themselves, right? So to prioritize their own mental health, their support system, their needs. So take care of yourself because it's hard work. Yep. So, yep. And you're modeling that too. So I think just giving yourself that grace, right, as a parent to say like, this is hard, and to give yourself the support that you need. I think that's huge. I think the second thing I would focus on is just keeping the lines of communication open with your kids. And it can be hard because especially through adolescence, but even before, right? Like kids, it can be a struggle to talk to kids and to really get to know what's going on in your life. And that's okay. Developmentally, we get that. That's appropriate. They're more peer focused and maybe not as open with their parents as they once were. That's okay. I think I would say to parents, like, they're still listening. They're still there, right? Like, focus on those moments where you can have good conversations, car conversations, finding those moments where you can connect, building positive experiences. I would say just to not shy away from some of these difficult conversations, because they do, even if you feel like you get a negative response from your kids, you're still showing them, I care, and I'm concerned, and I'm here, and I'm opening the door. So leave that door for communication wide open, and they'll use it. I think as a kind of final thing for parents, I would just say, don't hesitate to ask for help. There will inevitably be a time in your parenting journey where you're going to need help, and whether that's really like rallying your social support and your friends or your community members, or if that's calling AHM, like, we're definitely here. And whether you engage in our clinical program or if you're looking for something that's specialized or specific, or we can always just reach out. We will help you find it. I would always encourage people to kind of make that call or email or connect, and we'll help you. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's great. And knowing that it is hard to raise kids. It is hard to raise kids, I think, in any time and space, but especially right now when there is so much of an influence, like we talked about with social media and AI, and as kids gets older, it does get harder. But just knowing that there are people in the community here at AHM that really genuinely care and are extremely skilled and empathetic and ready and feel honored to be able to help those in our community, especially our parents and our youth. So, all right. So last thing, I know we touched on this really quickly, but how is the best way to connect with the clinical department at AHM?
Sure. I would say a couple different ways. One, you can find us through our website, ahmyouth.org. There's a section on the website for our clinical program and services. So there's a contact button where we get emails, and we will reach back out to you directly. You could also just call our office. And so that's at 860-228 9488. And we will help to connect you with our clinical program coordinator and answer any questions that you have. And or you can also engage with our social media and look for some of our resources and content that we've created that can offer some support, different ideas, and information on how to connect with us as well.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of great mental health information on our YouTube page, which we really developed during time of COVID and isolation. But yeah, just giving folks a variety of ways to connect, get resources, contact us. And just know that I do want to say too that if you are in a mental health crisis where you need immediate support, definitely call 911. The other number that we like to tell folks about is the 988 number. That is the system within Connecticut where you can call and talk to someone that can walk you through perhaps a mental health crisis and kind of determine whether 911 needs to be called or maybe mobile crisis units. So we are very fortunate in the state of Connecticut to have those options. So I think it's just important. Important for families to know how to reach out. We are always there at AHM, but obviously if it's in our off hours, 911 or 988 is the next best thing.
Absolutely.
All right, Megan, well, thank you for coming on today. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and we are grateful for everything you do for AHM. You take such pride in the work that you do, and I have to say, watching you grow over the years at AHM, you have really impacted hundreds of kids' lives and made a huge impact on families. And so we thank you for your work and your commitment, as well as our entire clinical staff.
Well, thank you for having me on this episode and for the opportunity.
Yeah, have a lot more, especially when it comes to social media. So.
Excellent. I look forward to it. That's wonderful.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Thanks.
Thank you all for tuning in today, and we hope to see you on the next AHM Here For You podcast.